You know me, Nick Shell. You know that I am a big supporter of MyHeritage DNA test. They don't endorse me, they don't pay me to do this. Now granted, I'm sure some of the money I make from YouTube comes from ads that people click on. But as far as me having an established relationship and being a spokesman for MyHeritage, not at all. I just happen to like them the most personally. However, I can admit they're not perfect, just like I can admit that no DNA test is perfect. And I wanted to point out something peculiar about MyHeritage. Now, the consensus about MyHeritage is that they have a smaller database. They've got a smaller sampling of DNA from across the world, which some people say they're less dependable because of that. I'm going to say, while it may be true they have less samples, at least for me personally, that has not been the case as far as it not being true as far as that goes. Because for me, very clearly, with my mom being Mexican and Italian, her test and the way it revealed itself through me, it still backs it up. As far as the Native American, the 21.6% that I've got that comes from that Mayan Aztec, I guess, part of Mexico there, modern day Mexico, that adds up. The high amount of Iberian is in there too. It all makes sense. Granted, there was some surprises about Italy, but I don't think it's so much a surprise anymore. And I think with other brands, we see that someone thinks they're Italian, and they're a lot of other things, because it's that Italian mix that we talk so often about on this channel. Now, here's the peculiar thing though about MyHeritage. I've noticed a lot of people just happen to be Nigerian and or Finnish, like from Finland. And I think that's a little bit peculiar, because out of all of the many nations in Africa, why Nigeria? And I get it with the slave trade, and maybe with certain ones that were more likely to end up through Europe. I can understand that certain parts of Africa were more likely to have done that. But Nigeria is singled out more so than all the countries in Africa. Nigeria. And it's like people who have the least little bit of African blood in them, even if they're predominantly white, say they're white like 99% and then they got 1% African. Well, if you look on it, it's typically going to say Nigerian if you take your test through MyHeritage. And I think that's peculiar. It's never anything else specific, is it? Has anybody ever had African descent and have a specific nation other than Nigeria? I just think that's peculiar. And I also think it's peculiar about Finland. It's almost like they're like, yay, we got a good sampling from Finland. We can prove if you're Finland. But I don't know, like there's a lot of countries in Europe and even neighboring countries that they can't be so specific about, but Finland. And it's like, even on the commercial, the ad that I watched when I was deciding to go with MyHeritage, there's a black guy, an African-American guy, and yeah, I think he finds out he's 74% African, and then he finds out that he's like 3% Finnish. So even him, like, there's the Finnish thing again. And here's what it reminds me of. There was a comedian, and Brian Regan, a while back he had a joke talking about the cranberry juice, the ocean spray, and talking about like, no one really wants cranberries. No one really wants cranberry juice, but they must have had a really good salesman. Like, hey, what you got? You got cherries? Hey, I got cranberry. Let's mix this together. We got cran cherry, cran grape, and all this stuff. And I kind of feel that way with the DNA from Finland and from Nigeria. It's like, it just shows up in everybody's. Like, everybody's a little bit. Like, I think that's peculiar. And I don't see that happening with other companies. And again, it's just something we can laugh about. I'm not here to say, man, you can't trust those companies. It's all a scam. I'm not one of those people. Not at all. I understand more than anything that taking a DNA test really comes down to entertainment. That's really what it comes down to. If we look at this from a psychological point of view, the real reason we're taking these DNA tests is ultimately for entertainment, especially as adults. How are we're entertained on a different level as an adult compared to when you were younger. And it is definitely entertaining to find out your ethnic background, compare it, contrast it against what you already know, to be surprised. At the same time, we take it with a grain of salt. We know it's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty close. And in my case, it absolutely was pretty close. So it's just so funny, though, that specifically Finland and specifically Nigeria. And other than that, things are just generic. It's like, okay, it'll say Europe, and then you click on that, and then, oh, of course, there's Finland. Click on Africa. Oh, of course, there's Nigeria. This is MyHeritage. What else would you expect it to say? Of course, it's going to say that you're either Nigerian or Finland. Now, granted, I'm an exception to the rule. I'm not one of those people that has it in there. But still, I just think it's worth bringing up, because even as I look through the comments, so many people will share the results, and there it is, Nigerian and or Finnish. What are your thoughts on that? Again, it's not to diss the company. I love MyHeritage. They're still my favorite. I'm just picking out one of the quirks that they have. I could just as easily pick out a quirk from one of the other companies. I am still the #1 fan for MyHeritage, and no, they don't endorse me or sponsor me. I'm just a guy who really likes them.